The Diesel Performance Podcast contains explicit language.
Thank you for joining us again. This is Paul Wilson.
And I'm Danny Voss.
And you're listening to the Diesel Performance Podcast. Danny, UCC still a huge topic of conversation. Every time I'm scrolling through Facebook, every time I'm doing anything, we're still talking about it. It's nuts, huh?
It's not going to get old. There's a lot to talk about.
There is. You know, we obviously have gotten a chance to do, I think we did 13 episodes or so over that weekend.
20
episodes over that weekend. We've interviewed a couple of guys since then. And now, of course, today we're going to get into it here. We have Shawn Baca on the phone again. What's going on, Shawn?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just down here in Vegas right now. How you guys been?
Shit, not living the good life like you, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm out here. There's actually a show going on. It's called LS Fest, and I'm out here at Welder Up right now, just dropping off an engine and picking up a truck. So kind of hanging out.
Living it up. I love it, man. Well, you deserve it after making 2,400 some horsepower on the dyno the other weekend, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I could use a little bit of a break after that. UCC.
Yeah, it was a long weekend. I think a lot of times people, you know, they're watching a highlight reel and they're, you know, you see 3 minutes of things put together and you're like, oh, I get it. But from the perspective of us being there and drivers and competitors actually being involved with it, it seemed like a lot longer than 3 days, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. The videos don't do any justice as to, you know, what goes into this actual event and into these trucks, just building them. I mean, everyone there is just running on no sleep, you know, for months on end and just living on the ragged edge, so to speak.
That's why I'm going to talk to James and Brandon and get Monster to sponsor this thing or something next year.
Yeah, maybe we can get Rockstar in there and have a pallet of Rockstars at every event for all the drivers and crew members, just so they can stand up.
It is crazy, man. I mean, you guys in the pits especially, it seemed like there wasn't a truck that went down the track or through any event that didn't come straight back to the pits and get worked on. It was crazy. But I want to start at the beginning here. So last year, obviously, you had Shredder, had the accident on the street, rebuilt the truck in a few days, like literally, and took it to the UCC, laid down about the same horsepower, right? Wasn't it like 2443 last year?
I don't remember. It's 2,400 and some change. This year was a little bit less horsepower.
Okay. We slid down a little bit, but we're in a different atmosphere. It's a different dyno this year than it was last year too, wasn't it?
No, it was the same dyno. I think they just had it calibrated. Yeah, I don't know. I had some stuff going on with my truck that, you know, might have been the cause for the less horsepower. I don't know. I just got up there and did my thing, and luckily we had enough just to stay out on top. So
sometimes you don't got to make all of the horsepower. Sometimes just enough to win, right?
Yeah, I mean, winning's winning, I guess. I mean, even 1 horsepower at 25, you know, 2,000 horse plus, one horsepower is a freaking mile at that power level, you know.
Yeah,
and that's what a lot of people don't understand. They just think that, you made the same as last year. That's maybe some people are there to hate, but I have a lot of respect for that number. That is huge.
Yeah, well, I think also we talk so much about 3,000 horsepower being the goal this year, and to not see anybody hit it, some people did feel let down. On the flip side of it, I think it just shows how hard it is, and I won't say unobtainable, but just how insanely hard it is to make big horsepower and keep a truck together. Because it's not like just bolt it together, right?
No, I mean, that's the name of the game. Who can stay together the longest when it comes to UCC? You know, who can run on the ragged edge and come out unscathed? You know, that's pretty much the name of the game there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, these things, you know, at that power level, I mean, anything is possible. You know, there's so much that goes on in the engine, let alone the drivetrain at that power level, that anything is possible. You know, one little thing turns into a big deal, you know, whether it's something going on in the engine. I mean, at that power level, anything can happen within a split second, and it goes before you can even react. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's the name of the game for UCC is who can stay together pretty much and run good while they're doing it.
Well, it's a Hail Mary fest, and we keep saying that, and it's so true.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and it's so early in the season. You know, none of us. And that's the thing. We're all trying to bring the best of the game, and we're all cutting it down to the wire to where we don't have any time to test or dial in or repair anything that split during testing, the little testing you have. So it's a very tough event.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the truck. For any first-time listeners who are just kind of getting into this, tell me about the build that you have in that NASA-sponsored vehicle.
Yeah, well, it's pretty much a stock chassis. It's been gutted. We did fiberglass this year. As far as drivetrain goes, I'm running a Hamilton solid 6.7 block with our, all of our Shredder Series components inside of it. It's got Shane Kellogg's turbos, his spare set for his super stock truck. Trump, everybody probably heard of that truck. So
Yeah.
I asked him for a favor, and he was kind enough to let me borrow his turbos and go beat on them for a weekend. What
is that turbo setup? What size are they?
I haven't even measured them. They're just huge. They're custom HX82s from Columbus Diesel.
Okay.
And I've never seen nothing's ever come across me that's that big on this side of the country. So I've seen them on Shane's truck in person. I've never seen them on a common rail or some sort of race truck, But yeah, they are awesome turbos. They work really, really good with each other as far as data goes, and boost and EGTs and stuff like that. But yeah, it's got a really big power plant, and I got a transmission from B&J Transmissions here out of Linden, Utah. It's a new transmission we decided to go with instead of the 48 RE we had. I just didn't have any luck with those, so we decided to try this. And
what is this transmission? Yeah. Tell me a little bit about this.
So it's these transmissions are all ran off of air, and you can run them with a converter or a clutch. And I opted to go with a clutch because I wanted to get as far away from an automatic transmission as possible. So pretty much simplifying everything to where it's damn near mechanical. So I went with a 4-disc clutch from Valair. It's one of their high-end pull-in clutches that they put in dragsters, tractors, pretty much anything that's over 2,000 horse. And then that goes into the transmission, and that transmission, they got these things in all sorts of stuff, like monster trucks, land speed cars, dragsters, rails, I mean, it's a pretty well-rounded transmission as far as, motorsports goes. I don't know if they've done any off-road testing with them yet as far as, like, Ultra 4s or Baja trucks like that. But
right.
I know they run them, they're mainly just pretty much just a drag transmission and land speed, because you can just keep stacking these things and get crazy ratios out of them to where you can go 200 plus miles an hour.
Oh my God.
So, but yeah, we got that, and then we got a SDS transfer case, a quick change transfer case with I had them put a 4-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive disconnect on it because just for ease of driving around the pits, plus, I can't dyno in 4-wheel drive.
Right.
So, yeah, and then that just goes into the factory axles that are loaded with all of Yukon's. I got a spool in the rear, and it's got a Detroit locker in the front, but it's got Yukon gears and axles. So other than that, suspension's pretty well stock.
So the big question, right? Like we've all seen the memes. Like, what was they did have some funny ones, Shawn. You got to give them that, man. At least some of the guys were pretty humorous.
I can't knock them. I mean, it's they're not lying. I mean,
well, it was
some
good.
Are, but I mean, the ones I've seen, they're, I just roll with it. I can laugh at it too.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I saw you comment on one the other day, a couple days ago here, where it was like the world's most powerful 12-second truck, and like it was great because so many guys came back and they're like, right, said somebody who's never gone 12 seconds.
Yeah,
it's pretty common.
Yeah,
right?
The comment we got on there, I was like, yeah, well, at least we got that going for us. So, I mean, somebody's got to have that title, I guess. So.
Well, obviously,
but yeah, nobody knows besides the people that are out there competing with me what actually it takes and what goes into these trucks. There's blood, sweat, and tears, and time spent away from families and stuff. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into these trucks that people have no idea. They're just they just sit there and watch and comment, but
I think that's it.
Do.
Yeah, exactly.
On the track or at the podium or in a magazine, I don't,
Or even on a practice day at the track. They're not even.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You don't see the people that are actually doing it. You don't see any of the competitors or anybody that's doing this stuff talking shit on each other, because they know. They know all the hard work that goes into this stuff. And, we're, so to speak, like a family.
Right.
And it's just outsiders looking in that, they're either jealous or envious or just can't do what we do, and they just hate on it. I don't know. I don't know what drives them.
They hate us because they ain't us.
It don't bother me none. Hate comes easy from my camp.
Well, Shawn, it's always been a pleasure to see you have such a sense of humor about it and be pretty down to earth about the fact that you made 2,400 horsepower and shit didn't work out the way you wanted it to. This year at the UCC, I feel like it was a catastrophe. I mean everybody's truck. I mean, there was almost nobody who went through without issue.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. That dyno, it took down a lot of freaking people this year, and I was expecting, because my engine did over 3,000 horse on the engine dyno, so, and that was just on fuel. And when I got down there on the rollers, and I had my issues with my truck, and we could only get 2,400 horse out of it on nitrous,
Only.
But
only.
Yeah, only, and that's the thing. We joke around with that too. We're so disappointed with these humongous numbers. We're almost like, if we're not 2,500 horse and above, we're doing something wrong.
Which is
so
crazy.
I actually.
And it comes back down to, like what I said earlier. Anything is possible at this power level. There's trucks that out there have been doing it, but not with these setups. So this is like uncharted territory. It's another thing to go from an engine dyno to a chassis dyno. Like, it works on an engine dyno, and then you go to put it in the truck, and it just runs like piss. Well, so then you got to make changes from there, So it's finding that fine medium of both worlds, as using the dynos as tuning tools and real life. Whatever you're trying to do with the truck as far as sled pulling or drag racing or, stuff like that. Because peak power is easy to make. It's just usable power that you can actually manage and get down to the ground. That's what it comes down to.
Well, that's the perfect segue. Danny and I were watching the video that you guys published over there at Industrial about Master Shredder 2, What's Next? And one of the things I thought it was really interesting, he said, we're going to back the power down and try to get this thing down the track. Do you think that's where the holdup is? Do you think you're just running too much horsepower, too much torque through that? It sounds like a semi-custom transmission setup.
That's the thing. These transmissions, it's not the horsepower, it's the torque, and it comes on at such a low RPM. It chews up the drivetrains on these trucks. I mean, whether it's in the transmission or further down the drivetrain in the axles or U-joints, you know, stuff like that. And I'm to the point where I'm tired of breaking all my shit, so I'm going to back down the power and save a bit of money and just start slow and work my way to it, you know? I mean, I've clearly it hasn't, what I'm doing is not working as far as drag racing, you know? So you got to almost go backwards from what you're used to, you know, and just do baby steps. You know, and that's the thing with that transmission. That's the most consecutive passes I've got out of it. Yeah, it did have its issues, but we were at freaking full boogie.
Right.
You know, who's to say it won't, you know, if I tone it down to 1,500 horse and just go from A to B, who's to say that it's not going to do, you know, it won't hold all day at that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we saw 1,500 horsepower trucks getting Allison down there at, you know, mid-nines, right? So we know if we have something that's more robust than an Allison, which anybody who's like big into the drag race world knows that pretty much nobody in Pro Street runs an Allison, because you'd be crazy too, because they really can't hold together over 1,000 horsepower, except for maybe just a few oddballs out there like Mike Graves and whatnot. But yeah, no. So I mean, there's definitely some method to the madness there of saying back down the horsepower and get down the track. You know, I thought it was really cool in the video. You threw out some numbers. You know, I want to see it in the mid-nines. Would love to see it in the eights. It's got the power. How much drag racing do you do out there, though? Is that something that you're really big with?
You can build these trucks, but who's to say they're going to perform? You know, it's not a dragster, so I don't have any idea what it's going to do on the drag strip. You know, it's not it's not really a purpose. It's a truck that's built to do three things, which is very hard to do with one vehicle. You know, the setups between sled pulling and dynoing and drag racing are miles apart, you know, and we're out here trying to collaborate and get the best of all three worlds and get it to where it's somewhat easy to change over and not, you know, have to have completely, you know, different chassis. You know what I'm saying? So
I do know exactly what you're saying, and that's something that we saw at the UCC, and I think a lot of guys talked about, you know, are we going to see next year a little bit more tightening down on the screws with the rules and making sure that you're running one truck through all three events and that there aren't any major changes. But I think it also brings up that question about, like you had said earlier, about keeping these things together and keeping them reliable. Some of the guys who performed quite well throughout the whole show didn't win any single category, but yet they made themselves into the top 5 or top 10 because they just
made it through. Exactly.
They kept it together for all three events. You went big on every event. You were there. You were there to try to kill it, man.
Oh, of course he did.
Yeah, it's almost like the tortoise and the hare story. You know, you got some trucks that are just built to go fast and win all the time, and then you got the ones that are just consistent and well-rounded that you can gamble on these big trucks breaking something and not making it to the next event. You know, so it's definitely a hard line to walk as far as that goes. You know, having something that's reliable yet badass enough to be, you know, come out on top of every event.
So I got to see you perform personally in each event, and during the drag race, I mean, you started out of the hole awesome, and then all of a sudden that trans looked like it gave out a little bit, and then you kind of coasted. I feel like the dyno you performed obviously very well, and then the sled pull event, which I was most looking forward to, you started out awesome. That thing looked like it was just going to sail down the track, and then at 81 feet, she stopped. So, I mean, I feel like you were going for the gold. And
yeah, what the fuck happened at the sled pull?
I think it was just a combination of all the broken shit from drag racing and band-aiding it to get it on the dyno. It just finally gave out. I got it home and tore it apart. We blew up one of the planetaries in the transmission. The clutches were pretty well smoked. I blew up the reverser freaking sitting there on jack stands because we welded one of the clutch packs in the truck, and you know, in the air with the engine running, the tires shouldn't have been moving. You know, we should have been in neutral, but I had bumped the reverser, and it just grenaded that. So
No.
yeah, and it was I mean, that's not like something we could fix there on the spot in a timely manner given the situation. But yeah, the sled pull, I think, you know, with some fine tuning and stuff, we can get this transmission to work fairly well in all three. I'm not saying that it's going to be bulletproof, but I'm saying that it can be a well-rounded transmission that, yeah, you might have to go in and restack the clutches or, you know, change a shaft here or there, but it's not going to break every single pass. Because with this transmission, there's a lot of possibilities. You know, I can change the ratios in the planetaries to give me different gearing. I can change the gearing in the T-case. You know, I can overdrive, underdrive, and then I can change the gearing in the axles as well to suit fit. So there's a lot of stuff to work with, and I mean, there's even more stuff I can change as far as clutch material, how much pressure we're throwing at it, how fast the main clutch is applying, you know, off the engine to the transmission. So there's a lot of stuff. You know, it's like sitting in front of a radio booth with all these switches and knobs, and you know, it's figuring out which one's going to sound the best and run the best. You know,
That's why we got Rich.
Yeah.
Producer.
You need a producer. It's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm trying to do. You know, this is something that's not been done in a 6,000-pound truck. So I got a lot of, you know, I got the designer of the transmission working with me. I got Dan Valance with the clutch, you know, with all his expertise. Jared Vollmer, he's ran that transmission when he had the record for Pro Street, and he's the one that actually writes the tunes to where tell the transmission to shift and when to apply. We got Ryan Milliken tuning the truck to where we can say, hey, I need this power here, this power there. And, you know, and that's what I mean by my team. You know, I don't want to go out and just buy everything and just, you know, we're working on it as a team. All these guys have their own input, and, you know, I feel like they're the best at what they do, and that's why they're helping me.
You know, it's so rare to hear that, Shawn.
There's definitely
very rare.
A lot of brains going into this. You know, it's not just me pounding my head against the wall trying to throw a Hail Mary every time. You know, there's a lot of input going into this. So
absolutely,
for those that don't know, you know, and people that just speculate like the haters, you know, that they don't know what goes on behind closed doors, and they don't have any grounds to speculate on. So.
Well, that's it. And Shawn, you know, that's what I was saying there, is that it's so rare to hear this, because we get so many guys who say, well, why doesn't he run a trans from this person? Or why doesn't he run a trans from them? Or, you know, why doesn't he do this? Why doesn't he do that? And it's great to hear that you've developed a team and you've started kind of figured out who you wanted to work with and then continue to stick with them. Because like you said, this shit is cutting edge. This is all brand new to anybody. So nobody has an answer. It's all a guessing game. You can make an educated guess, which sounds like what you're trying to do. But at the end of the day, there's no crystal ball that's going to say 1 + 1 equals a 9-second pass. You know, like,
and that's the thing at this power level that everyone's at. That goes for everything. You know, it's not just this transition. It's Dawn's transition. I mean, these guys are pushing these things so hard, you know, and it's not just them throwing a Hail Mary pass. They've got a lot of input, and it goes into every setup. You know what I'm saying? It's not just my particular setup. It's everybody that was there. You know, they're doing what they think is what needs to be done. You know, and it's stuff that has never been done by anybody. You know, the guy next to you might be a little bit further ahead, but who's to say the next thing you do isn't going to put you ahead of them?
That's right.
And when you have the Queen of Diesel in your corner there, Shawn, good things are going to happen. Paul and I got a chance to meet her. She owns Industrial. What's her name?
Her name's Geraldine Williams.
We had so much fun, actually. Danny and I did have a chance to catch up with her and Brett and the rest of the crew over there at Industrial. I think you might have been downstairs, but I think the only one missing from the table there over at Rock Bottom Brewery in Indy. And it was a blast. We're definitely going to have some more guys on from over there at the shop. But man, I'll tell you, Shawn, the truck looked nasty, and those cut tires on it and the weight box, it looked like a legit sled pull truck, which I've always kind of thought of your truck, Master Shredder, as kind of a dyno truck, right? Like that's where we've always seen it perform the best. what's the future of this thing with sled pulling? Are we going to make it a dedicated puller? I heard you mention it in the video. You're on the fence here, man. What do we got to do to have you say you're going to keep this thing in the dirt?
That's the thing. If I can't get this transmission to work, I know of one transmission that will work, and that is a straight reverser. Either Profab or SCS. Those will work, but it's one gear, and at that point, it's going to become a dedicated puller until somebody, whoever they are, wherever they are, can come out with something that they can prove to me that can go round and round and round and not break. And even I've heard of people blowing up drop box reverser setups. So.
Oh yeah, seen it happen.
But
so last
the
year,
chances of doing that are pretty slim. They got those things pretty figured out. So.
Yeah. Well,
and it's gear to gear. It's not more than one. You got forward and reverse, and that's it. And I know those will hold. But yeah, I want to see, before I do anything drastic, I want to at least get some more data out of this transmission and figure it out to where it'll go from A to B more than a handful of times. So, once I get fed up with that, then maybe we'll make it a dedicated puller. I don't know.
Well, last year after the UCC,
it's
Shawn,
definitely a good look for the truck.
Damn it! I'm sorry, I'm talking over everybody today. But I just want to say, last year at the UCC, after the UCC last year, you went out and attacked all the freaking events you could possibly go to on the dyno. You were everywhere. So I personally hope to see the Master Shredder out and about at some of these events this summer. Do you have any big plans on competing with it at other events this summer?
That's another thing I kind of been thinking about lately is how much I want to chase that circuit, the dyno circuit again. It's hard to pass them up, given they pay out really well. But also, I want to focus more on drag racing and then do stuff, behind the scenes at my own pace, to where I can get this truck dialed and not just go out and make one pass and, a one and done. I want to be able to take it to an event and go round after round after round, like it should be. And I don't know, it might back off the dynos a little bit, just to give people a better chance of progressing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's gotten to the point where I show up at a dyno event and nobody wants to play. So to the point where it's like, you know what, I'll step out and let them do their thing. That way it puts some money in their pocket, and then they can turn that and put it in their truck or do whatever,
Yeah, get some more competitors
so
out
I'd
here.
like to kind of back off a little bit and give some people, help them out that way.
That sounds like some bullshit. I think you should be the last entry so they don't know you're signing up, and then clean house with them,
Oh, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Shawn, you mentioned that you want to focus more on drag racing. What's your background in drag racing? Have you been doing it for a long time, or is this something that's a little bit more new to you?
No, I've drag raced, ever since I've got my license. We have a local track back then they were like the high school midnight drags. So I'd go out there with whatever vehicle I had. But then I got into the diesel stuff, and then we built the Duramax drag truck, industrial truck, and I was the original driver of that. And I used to run nines in that truck, so it's not like I haven't ever been down the drag strip. It's something with my truck just hates the strip, and I don't know what it is, but it's last year we did that little thing down in Phoenix and was on 1320, but
yeah, that was awesome.
I had some new setups in the truck, and off the line it smoked the forward clutches, so we went in the pits and rebuilt it with a Checker O'Reilly rebuild kit. So it wasn't the best of materials I could have used, but it was what was available. And I had this launch control button on the steering wheel, and I'd never used it, and I was like, all right, well, let's try it out, and used it. Well, the beginning of that run was just driver error. Like, I go to launch, and this thing's not going nowhere. And it's like, oh yeah, dumbass, you got to let off the button. And once I did it, that thing took off like a rocket, and it went 140 something miles an hour with like a damn near 3-second 60 foot. So the truck makes the power. But yeah, it's just going to come down to seat time and how reliable I can get the setup.
Well, clean your act up on the track, man. We're looking forward to seeing you tear it up.
Yeah, just follow
it's
Danny's
definitely
advice now that he said
It's
it.
definitely a learning curve with having a clutch and a handbrake and trying to hang on to 2,000 horsepower.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on, that's for sure.
Absolutely. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
You said it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Shawn, we definitely appreciate you taking time out of your work vacation time there. How can people follow you if they want to keep seeing the progression of Master Shredder?
You can follow me on Facebook or Instagram is probably the better way. You can follow Industrial's social media pages, or you can swing by the shop and come grab some II swag and see the shop and hang out with the guys and see the builds that we got going on. And, check out the whole shop. We have a lot to offer there as far as diesel performance goes. It's pretty cool. We get them all the time, little tours coming through. So it's definitely a cool thing we got going on down there. So it's one to check out, that's for sure.
I'm going to take you up on that
There's
next
always
time I'm out
something
there.
going on.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. Well, thanks again so much, Shawn, for putting on a great show at the UCC and for joining us today. This has been Paul Wilson.
And I'm Danny Voss.
Thanks for listening.
The Diesel Performance Podcast is brought to you by Calibrated Power Solutions, home of DuramaxTuner.com, developer of performance engine and transmission calibrations for a wide variety of late model diesel powertrains, including the Duramax, Cummins, John Deere, Jeep, and many more. For more information and the best customer service in the industry, check out calibratedpower.com or call 815-568-7920.
Can't do what we do, and they just hate on it. I don't know. I don't know what drives them.
They hate us because they ain't us.
Hate comes easy from my camp.